Hello and welcome back to The Notebook, a twice weekly show where we break down NHL rumors and storylines. I'm joined as always by my two beauties, Zach Laing, Cam Lewis. But boys, it's a little bit quieter of a start to the week than last week as the NHL All-Star Weekend just wrapped up. Team Matthews beating Team McDavid. My first question is going to be, what did we think of the weekend? And did anybody actually care?
I loved it. I thought it was
Good.
awesome. I thought this was the first time in what feels like a long time that the All-Star Game's actually been exciting to watch. Beyond the draft being a little bit boring as it was going on, the skills competition was good. Almost everybody was very involved. Almost everybody. We got to see Connor McDavid, take home the top prize there. And it was hilarious because yesterday during the Oilers media availability, Leon Draisaitl was joking around saying he wants a cut of McDavid's prize money. There's some moral support for him. So yeah, I thought it was a blast this time around.
I genuinely did like it. I was pretty into it. But Coon, what was your favorite part of the whole weekend?
Oh, geez. The funniest part of the weekend, or the most entertaining part, definitely was when Michael Bublé gave his kind of story about microdosing mushrooms and winding up on the ice and how that felt like he was in Blades of Glory or something. It
was awesome.
The celebrity angle is not always for everybody when it comes to sporting events, but then sometimes you wind up with these hilarious sound bites like that. And this is what All-Star Weekend should be all about, like weird sound bites, people coming together and doing goofy stuff. I thought it was a pretty fun weekend, honestly.
McDavid wins the Millie, Bublé with an all-time clip. Hang on to those memories from the All-Star Weekend because, gentlemen, the All-Star Game, it's going to be taking a little bit of a break because the Four Nations Cup is going to be replacing the All-Star Game next season. It's Canada, USA, Finland, and Sweden rather than your traditional All-Star Game format. Let me ask you first, Zach, what do you make of this? I'm a little torn because I just can't help but think, what if you weren't from one of these four countries?
Well, I think that's what everybody's kind of asking right now, Aaron. You look at the comments from David Pastrnak saying he was disappointed that his country of the Czech Republic isn't going to be represented. It's kind of a tough spot that the NHL's put a lot of their players in. Obviously, Russia's not involved because of the ongoing geopolitical issues in the world right now. And, when you take a look at some of these other countries, the Czech Republic, 98 active NHL players, Slovakia, 29 active NHL players, Switzerland, 29, Germany, 25. There's a lot of these players from around the world that are great talents that we're not going to have a chance to see. So I am excited for it because I think it's going to be great to see some form of a best on best tournament here, almost reminiscent of the World Cup of hockey from a number of years ago. But I can't help but feel for guys like Pastrnak and Draisaitl, especially too. That's another guy we're not going to see on this big stage.
They at least had the Team Europe and Team North America for the World Cup thing. I like the idea of them maybe building, the national aspect as we're leading into the Olympics. Coombsy, do you see some of that national allegiance starting to build up?
Yeah, this isn't going to be the exact same thing as a best on best tournament. It's not a pure perfect thing, but for the NHL to execute this in the middle of the season, you're not going to be able to create 8 different teams and do it. It's going to be a challenge. And then also, when the last World Cup happened in 2016, so many people were critical of Team North America with the Millennial U23 team, whatever it was, and Team Europe. People were crapping on it, like, which anthem are you even going to play if Team Europe wins the championship? Who
all
knows?
of them,
right? Just play them all simultaneously, 10 different anthems back to back to back. Like it doesn't really make any sense, but I don't know. I think this year's All-Star Game was fun, but it does get stale when it's the same thing over and over. And 4 teams, these are probably the 4 best ones. It kind of just is what it is. It's better than nothing. There's been so little international hockey. I'll take this.
Yep, I'll take this. I'm happy with the change. And once again, I thought they did a good job this season. Granted, the bar was set pretty low from last year's All-Star Game, ripping at surfboards and whatnot. But I digress. We move along. So it's a little bit lighter of a week for storylines and rumors leading up to the trade deadline. So we wanted to take a peek through the Western Conference standings and try to predict where some of these teams we believe will finish or how the rest of the season is going to go. So my first question for you, Zachary, top team right now in at least the Pacific Division, the Vancouver Canucks. I'll ask you straight up, are they going to stay this hot?
I don't know. Part of me keeps expecting them to kind of fall off at some point here this season, but at the end of the day, they are looking really good right now. They're sitting right at the top of the NHL standings right now, 33, 11, and 5 record, 71 points going into Tuesday night's game. They just made a huge move picking up Elias Lindholm. And the thing about this Vancouver Canucks team, they still got cap space to play with. They got $3.1 million in cap space according to Cap Friendly right now. they have the opportunity to add some more pieces to this team and really go on a big run this year. Last year I thought that Boston was going to fall off at some point in the regular season. They never did. Granted, their fall off came in the first round of the playoffs, getting knocked out there. Hey, maybe that's where Vancouver falls off the wagon.
Another team, second place in the Pacific Division, the Edmonton Oilers, going for 17 in a row tonight. Wow, you'd think I know that. I do the pregame show. But the Vegas Golden Knights, Coombsy, they're a team that injuries kind of getting the best of them right now. Do you predict that they're going to stay in that 2 slot, maybe that 3 fighting with the Oilers?
That's a tough one. The Golden Knights came flying out of the gates, as we all know. They were the Stanley Cup champions last year, and they ran out 2023-24. It was 10, I think, consecutive wins, and then the overtime loss as well. They went 11 games this year without losing in regulation to kick things off, and they've slowed down a little bit since then, but now they're doing their kind of annual march to the long-term injured reserve. Shea Theodore was on the LTIR. Jack Eichel was on for a while as well. And they're just accruing cap space. And I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the Golden Knights are going to do. There was talk that they might reacquire Riley Smith, who they traded away in the offseason to Pittsburgh as a salary cap dump. It's hard to say exactly what will happen because it's a solid team, but you got to look at the Oilers. They're only 5 points back with 5 games in hand. And I think if the Oilers have a goal for the rest of the season when it comes to the standings, I think it's getting home ice against Vegas no matter what. Like, there's no guarantee Vegas is going to finish third, and that's who you're going to face. But if you're looking at it like that, that should be the goal. You got to jump the Golden Knights in the standings and be one of the top 2. If you can't pass Vancouver, fine, but you got to get ahead of Vegas.
Zach, the Edmonton Oilers, hottest team in the NHL right now. Let me ask you, will we ever lose again?
No, we will not.
There you have it, folks.
No, they'll lose at some point, obviously, here in the regular season. The streak's going to end at some point, but you know what? It doesn't seem to be something that the players are really worried about at all. You know, they've kind of been saying that they're really not thinking about it. They're going out and just doing their thing every single game and trying to just win every hockey game. You know, as Coombsy mentioned, the Oilers, if you go off points percentage right now, they're actually second in the Pacific Division. They're looking really, really sharp, and their game has turned around massively. We've seen a lot of really key things that have improved for this Oilers team. And now they're going to have a little bit of cap space to kind of play around with here as well. And it's not much, but, you know, the expectation is that the Oilers are going to be buyers here at the deadline. So it's going to be an interesting next month runway here to the trade deadline.
Coombsy, when you think about the Oilers being buyers, we talked a little last week. What's your number one area of improvement for the Oil?
Oh, it's not an easy one. I mean,
Yeah, right.
At the beginning of the year, it was for sure a goalie. That's what I thought it was. And now it looks like, I mean, all 4 goalies in the organization are playing right now. You got Skinner, Picard, and then in the AHL, Campbell's found his game. Olivia Rodriguez playing really well too. I think honestly for me, it's forward depth at this point. I mentioned this in the show last week. I really like for the Oilers to get another guy to play on the line with Corey Perry, who can just be crazy about drawing penalties. I'd love to see that on his other wing.
I think my dream target right now is still Jake Gensel at the top of the list, but it might have to become more realistic. We've heard Travis Konechny's name. I've even heard a couple Jordan Eberle rumors return. Zach, you hearing anything about that?
I think it would be awesome. I
It'd
think,
be
you
so
know,
sick.
when you look at the Seattle Kraken, it's realistic for them to consider themselves as potential sellers this year. You know, they've been having a good season. They've had a good couple of seasons here, but at the end of the day, you know, this is a Seattle Kraken team that just isn't quite there yet right now in terms of being ready to make a push into the playoffs. So, you know, with Jordan Eberle, he is a UFA at the end of the year, making $5.5 million. You know, they could realistically eat 50% of that, no problem, and make a move with the Oilers to pick up a couple of assets, whether that be, you know, through the way of a prospect or a player coming back the other way. I think Eberle would be maybe the most realistic trade target in terms of forwards right now for the Oilers.
And I think he'd be a fan favorite. I feel pretty safe in saying that one. Moving over to the Central Division, though, the Colorado Avalanche, wagon of a team. Coombsy, Nathan MacKinnon, wagon of a hockey player.
Yeah, Nathan MacKinnon set a career high in points last year. He scored 111, and he didn't wind up winning the Hart Trophy. Of course, Connor McDavid did considerably more points. Nathan MacKinnon, to this point in his career, doesn't have a Hart Trophy. He has a Stanley Cup, but this season, through 50 games, he's got 85 points, and it looks like this is going to be the year. I mean, the Colorado Avalanche, of course, won their Stanley Cup, took a little bit of a step back the year after that, and this year, again, they're starting to look like one of the big teams in the Western Conference you worry about in the playoffs, but while McKinnon's playing arguably the best hockey of his career, there's still a pretty big worry about Colorado's goaltending situation. I mean, it's an 898 save percentage combined among the three goalies they've used this year, and that's
But
probably
Georgiev's an all-star.
exactly, yeah. Georgiev was at the All-Star game, so I mean, there you go. But if that's one thing that if Colorado's going to pull the trigger and do something before the deadline, you'd think goalie would be the thing to do.
A team that's pretty well off in the crease as well, the Dallas Stars. Honestly, they're a perpetual threat for the playoffs every season. Great young studs and Robertson and Rupe Hintz up there, Heiskanen on D. You've got Ottinger in between the crease. Zach, how far do you think the Stars could go this year?
I think they could go on a serious run. I really do. They are a threat in the Western Conference that I don't think enough people are really talking about. This is a good Dallas team who's doing a lot of the things that you want to see. They got great goaltending in Jake Ottinger. They got a deep forward group. They got a deep defense right now. You know, it's going to be interesting to see. Are they going to make any moves here to make any acquisitions at the trade deadline? Surely they will. I mean, I'm sure they'd want to add some pieces, maybe a little bit more depth on the blue line, somebody who can be maybe more of an impact on that third pairing. But this is a Dallas team that I think is going to be a real threat this year.
Another team that is quite the threat right now. Once again, another great goaltender in their crease, the Winnipeg Jets. Connor Hellebuck can steal a series. Connor Hellebuck can steal a game. They just made a move to acquire Sean Monahan, and we're hearing Mark Scheifele is back.
Yeah, Mark Scheifele's back now, and Sean Monahan's there, so that's a pretty big boost to Winnipeg's center depth there. I mean, it's a pretty significant price to pay, giving up a first rounder for Scheifele, but the Jets, kind of like how Vancouver, the Canucks in the Pacific Division, they're the team that's been sort of surprising in the Central. They made that big trade in the offseason. Pierre-Luc Dubois got two pieces back from LA. Both have been doing well, and things are just clicking there. And I mean, if the Oilers are going to reach the Stanley Cup final, they're going to have to get through a team from the Central. And I mean, I think, honestly, the one team you probably don't want to face is the Jets. We all remember back in the Scotiabank North Division playoffs. Connor Hellebuck turns aside, 200 of 202 shots in that whole series, and the Oilers couldn't score on him. I don't want to deal with that ever again.
You mentioned the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, the team on the other side of that, the LA Kings. Boy, oh boy, has that deal not worked out for them. We've talked about PLD a little bit and Drew Doughty's comments before. But, Zach, they fired their coach. They got promoted a new one. I believe DJ Smith is now in the scene there as well. Are the LA Kings going to turn this around?
Well, you have to wonder at some point if they're going to. This is an LA Kings team that's been scrappy for a number of years under Todd McClellan. And, you know, I think part of the reason that McClellan got fired is, you know, I think the message maybe wore out a little bit there. We kind of saw it happen in Edmonton too with McClellan, where, you know, he's kind of an old school coach, right, Aaron? You know, he's got that bit of a gruff to him, and he can be known to be a little bit hard on the players and stuff. And I think, you know, maybe at some point, obviously they had to make a decision and make this change. You know, this is still a deep LA Kings team. This is a really good group that they have, especially in their top six. The problem is that they've got Pierre-Luc Dubois making $8.5 million on their third line, and he is just not producing. 10 goals and 20 points in 48 games this season is just not enough from a guy that you acquired for the package that they did. You know, the Jets look like they've made off very, very well out of that there. I think the Kings are going to be an active team as they kind of try and bring some juice into that lineup. Guy like Arthur Kaliev, somebody who could be on the way out as well. He's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit there. He's only got 14 points in 38 games this season. Not bad for playing on the third, fourth line. And at 22 years old, you know, there's opportunity for him to continue to rebound as a player. So I'm looking at the Kings as somebody who could be really active this year at the deadline.
Another team that I'm torn on because they're kind of stuck in the middle of the will they, won't they. It's the St. Louis Blues, kind of the same thing, right? Got rid of their coach earlier this season. Are they a team that should lock in and go for the playoffs, or Coombs, you do believe that they should maybe shut it down and start to be sellers?
It's a really weird one because, I mean, of all the teams you could ever tell to not give up, it's the St. Louis Blues, because we all remember 2018-19, they were in last place in the league. And what was it, mid-December when the calendar turned at New Year? And then they get into the playoffs. Jordan Bennington goes crazy and they win the Stanley Cup. And it's like, nobody saw that coming. And I mean, the interesting thing about the Western Conference is it almost seems like there's like 6 playoff teams here, the 6 teams we just talked about, and the wild card's just totally all open. You could have teams like St. Louis, Nashville, Seattle, Calgary. A bunch of those teams could perhaps sell ahead of the deadline and still find their way in. So if you're a team like the Blues, you don't have a whole bunch of you don't have really any high quality pending unrestricted free agents. So, I mean, if you do want to sell, you can probably just wait till the summer and give this thing a ride. And maybe you just make it in, because 2 teams have to make it into the wild card. And I mean, they might not be very good ones, but you can get yourself a few home playoff games, and it's better than nothing, right?
You just need a ticket to the dance. Okay. That's what I told myself in junior high as well. If we're talking about those teams, right, for the last 2 wild card spots, you've got the Blues, you got the Kings, you got the Nashville Predators, another team I think perpetually stuck in that middle. Will they, won't they? The Seattle Kraken, a little bit more of a disappointing season this year. We all remember what they did last year in the playoffs. Let me ask you, Zachary, there's 2 spots up for grabs. Who's pouncing on those spots?
Man, that's a great question. I have a hard time really picking any single team here because, as Kimsey mentioned, there's just a group of these teams that are just like really mediocre right now. And they're kind of on that cusp. Could St. Louis do it? Sure. They've got a veteran team who's been there and made runs in the playoffs before. Nashville, they've got some nice pieces, but I kind of struggle to see them being a team that really can take a step forward here. And I think they're a group that could be sellers. I mean, they've got UC Saros in net right now. Yaroslav Askarov is knocking on the door of big NHL minutes. I have a hard time thinking and seeing them actually making a deal to trade away Saros, especially in the middle of the season here. That feels like more of an off-season move if they choose to do so. A couple of other interesting pieces, though. Alexander Carrier, that's a really solid third pairing defenseman there. Maybe bump up into the second pairing if they need him to, for any potential team that would be interested in buying. Another guy that's interesting is Yakov Trenin. He's a big-bodied winger who plays physical. Kind of feels like he could be a guy that fits the mold of what the Edmonton Oilers are looking to do.
I'm a Thomas Novak guy out of Nashville. Novechkin is the nickname I like to give him. Kumsey, 2 spots available. Who's getting them?
I think it's going to wind up. I think LA is going to slide in there despite their kind of bad run here. I think the firing McClellan's going to get people to tighten up a little bit. I mean, they have the skill in the roster. They should be fine. And I do think the other one's going to wind up being Seattle. I think if you look at St. Louis and Nashville and Seattle, Arizona, some of those teams since the Kraken are new and they've already drafted so many players early in their years, I don't think they're going to be in much of a position to think, all right, let's worry about the future. I think the Kraken want to be competitive. I think that's the team who really wants to be back in the playoffs.
One of those teams you mentioned slightly there, but we didn't bring up a lot. And stop me if you've heard this one before. The Arizona Coyotes are having trouble with their new arena deal.
Okay, stop. That's enough.
Whoa, crazy. Zachary, can you fill me on this situation? I feel like I'm reading the same article from like 6 months ago and 6 months ago, so on and so forth. What's the new news?
Well, what we've really seen is the NHL Players Association head, Marty Walsh, really lay into the Arizona Coyotes over their arena situation. Now, Marty Walsh is a guy who comes from a strong labor background, working for the U.S. government. That's where his roots are. So it's interesting to see, for maybe the first time, him really come out with some hard-stanced public opinion about, what's going on here. And what's clear is that players aren't happy. There's a situation here going on where the Arizona Coyotes are playing out of a NCAA hockey arena that's shared with 2 hockey teams, 2 volleyball teams, and a wrestling team.
Just like hear what you just said. That's crazy.
It's insane. It's insanity. It's insane that we continue to sit here and see this happening. Marty Walsh is upping the pressure here on the Arizona Coyotes to figure out their arena situation. It sounds like, as Frank Saravalli reported on Monday, we could be days or weeks away from finding out more about that. So going to be really interesting to see what happens on that front.
I'll be down in Arizona in just a couple of weeks. I'll let you know. I'll give you the full review, boys, when we come back on whether or not this really is a second-grade arena.
Perfect.
And the final thing that I wanted to bring up, because why not? Once an Oiler, always an Oiler, boys. Jesse Puljujarvi has signed a 2-year deal with the Penguins. I believe it's worth $1.6 million. I couldn't be happier for the guy, Zach. So well deserved.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this is somebody who has had obvious struggles here in Edmonton and in Carolina. And what's clear now is that he was not healthy whatsoever last season. He went and had double hip surgery this offseason, signed a trial with the Pittsburgh Penguins, went down to their minor leagues, 9 points in 13 games for him down there, and he's earned a 2-year deal, $800,000 with the Penguins. And it's going to be great to see him back in the NHL. I've seen some of the clips down from the American League, and it looks like the Puljujarvi, when he was kind of at his peak in Edmonton, when he was really hard on the forecheck, turning pucks over, setting up other players to make plays. Pittsburgh's a team out east that really needs some jump right now, and Puljujarvi might be able to help provide that in the bottom six.
Coombsy, do you have high hopes for the Bison King, or are you kind of keeping your expectations a little tempered?
I think he's going to find excellent chemistry with either Sidney Crosby or Genny Malkin.
Gensel is pull parties in, baby.
Exactly, that's right. He's going to push Gensel out, Gensel to the Oilers, and this is going to become a talking point for a long time.
Oh, that'd be a dream. That'd be full circle right there, boys. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for sitting down with me once again. Thank you to all you. Be sure to smash that like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll be hitting you up later this week as well with another update. Maybe we'll have some more trades, some more rumors. As time winds down to the NHL trade deadline, we're going to have a daily face-off trade deadline show produced by yours truly. I actually got the word the other day. So shout out to you boys. I appreciate you. Shout out to everybody watching, and we'll catch you later this week.